Moya Dam, which is full, and they have to release part of the water into the system so that it doesn't cause a breakage of the dam and then cause flooding around different areas. So places like Magodo, which are not supposed to be flooded about this time, are actually being flooded because of the release of excess water, which is not being able to go into the ocean because the lagoons are full and the oceans are also quite full. So there's backdrop of water back into the system. This just goes to show that the effect of climate change across the world. That for me is a major issue, and it's beginning to affect us. This is October, generally where you expect that the rains should have stopped. But it's been raining since the first day of October, every day practically. And the rains are not just drizzles, they are heavy rains. And if the channels are all blocked and the dams are overflowing, then we know that there could be possible repercussions from flooding. So at least they're telling us something. They should continue to educate everybody so that people can prepare themselves for this kind of things. And if they need to evacuate people from particular areas, they should sound them out as quickly as possible so that they can make all the necessary arrangements.
I think it also highlights the need for us to pay attention to nature, Mother Nature,
Yes.
because I do not really think we can build as many dams to carry as much water if we do not take care of what is causing this problem in the first place, which is depleting the ozone layer and cutting our tree or felling our trees on a daily basis. If you
Like,
look around Lagos, how many trees can you find?
well,
How much vegetation can you find?
it's well, development has taken over quite a number of the places where you should have trees that will protect nature. And even the ones that are being planted, you find out that every new governor comes and brings them down and starts to plant a new set. Along what's it called, Kingsway Road or Alpha Rewani, there were trees that were planted by one government. The next one came, brought it down, and they've just planted a new set. So why do we do this? Why don't we continue and provide other places where we can make nature better? For instance, remember that in Ethiopia there was a campaign,
There was a tree
Yeah, to
planting
plant
yeah,
program.
more
tree camping
trees.
campaign that in one day over I can't remember, about
Hundreds of trees
300,000 or
were
so
You know, hundreds of
trees were
millions.
planted in 12 hours. So we should start looking at all those things. Like I said, this is the effect of climate change.
In addition to climate change, Wadi, I do understand that aspect. How about planning? So we have issues around drainage system. So one of this isn't the first time it's happening in Lagos State where we have heavy rains and it becomes flooded. I know we cannot. I mean, Mother Nature will take its course, but how about human planning to mitigate the effects of these, natural effects? So, for instance, in Lagos, we've talked about the state of our roads, we've talked about the poor drainage system, we've talked about the fact that some buildings are built on canals which should ease the flow of water, but this hasn't been addressed, and Lagosians are asking what is the Ministry of Environment doing about it?
Well, Ayo, that's a big question, and everything we do must come with proper plans. I know there is a master plan in Lagos. Are we following those master plans? We're all speaking about Lagos as the next great city in the world, but great cities are built on great plans,
Absolutely.
and we need to go back to those things.
Thank you very much, Wadi. Our next story from Premium Times newspaper reads has headline: Border closure, Nigeria's neighbors to blame. That's what the finance minister said. Zainab Ahmed was asked this question regarding the border closure. She was asked when on an international party that she went for, but she says her answers are quite curious. She was in Washington on Sunday, where she said that Nigeria's closure of its land borders. Are not the actions are not punitive, but because of they were checking smuggling issues. We had some other issues that concerned this border closure, but Cheta, I'd like you to go through it with us.
There are three things I want to address in my little talk here. Um, First, on Saturday, most of the papers ran with the news agency of Nigeria um, interpretation of a statement by Abebe Selassie, who is the director of the Africa department at the IMF. and said that the IMF supports the border closure. If you read the full statement, it wasn't even a statement, he was just answering a question. He said, on the border closure, Nigeria, which has been impacting, on the border closure in Nigeria, which has been impacting Benin and Niger, our understanding that the border has been closed, reflecting concerns about smuggling that has been taking place, illegal trade, not the illegal trade that you want to facilitate. So we are very hopeful that discussions will resolve the challenges that this illegal trade is fostering. To be sure, if the border closure was to be sustained for a long time, it's going to definitely have an impact on Benin and Niger, which of course rely quite extensively on their big brother next door. So we hope that there will be a resolution to that closure issue. That's not, in my view, a statement of support. That's a very diplomatic way of telling you that, guys, do this, resolve this thing fast because you're actually affecting your neighbors. Which brings me to the second thing. The Minister of Finance in her statement is clearly blaming our neighbors for the problems.
Mhm.
And it's the classic Nigerian thing of pushing responsibility away from your own failures. So, our customs agencies have clearly failed in our customs service has clearly failed in its task, which is why they are closing car companies up and down in Lagos or going to raid luxury hotels in Abuja because cars don't have the customs papers. Whereas the closest customs checkpoint to that hotel that they raided was is 564 kilometers. It tells you they didn't do their job. Instead of us to look at reform of customs, I mean, there was a huge expose a few years ago on how customs was a problem. I think it was 2016 on how
2015.
customs was a problem, how customs essentially sets itself up as roadblocks to business, whether legal or, in short, with legal businesses. So instead of us to look at reforming the customs service for efficiency and for business to thrive, we are blaming our neighbors and then shutting down our border, which brings me to the third thing. Many Nigerians that I've spoken to, I wouldn't say majority, but because those who are in the economics field, almost without exception, there are two people who I've spoken to in the field that support the border closure. But all the rest, and I've spoken to quite a number, feel it's a bad idea. However, the average Nigerian seems to be happy with it, and it appears when you interrogate them further, it appears that they are enjoying our bullying of our smaller neighbors because that's what it is. We are bullying them in the mistaken belief that it shows our power. Oh, that Nigeria is a big country. These people should bow to us. What we don't realize is that Benin and Niger together make up less than 1% of the total formal trade that Nigeria has. Informal trade definitely a lot higher, but there are no accurate measurements for that. Ghana, on the other hand, is higher than both Benin and Niger combined. And Ghana is already reacting very negatively. On Friday, the main Ghana umbrella trade union for Ghanaian um, uh, 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 businesses actually asked their president to, as in, they're asking to ban or restrict goods coming from
From Nigeria.
Nigeria in retaliation for this. More importantly than even Ghana is the perception. So you have the fact that a few days after signing the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, we slammed the borders shut. It gives the impression that we are people who don't respect agreements, who renege on agreements at the whim, and all of that. And on Thursday, Capital Economics, an influential economic research firm based in London, sent a note to its clients saying that Nigeria has turned towards autarky. That singular note is more damaging than any other thing. People don't, I think we don't get this. This thing will show up in our inflation numbers and on our tables going down the line. Just mark my words.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Cheta.
Thank you, Cheta. Temi from Ikorodu says moving through Ikorodu Road at the moment, and the flood is a very big disaster around Ajegunle. But then I ask why the necessary authorities didn't stop people from building in these flood-prone areas. Ladley Johnson said, and with Cheta here, the customs service needs to be reformed as soon as possible. We have a few more comments around the report of the flood. And
All right, we'll go very
move on to
quickly
yes, we'll go on.
to the next story. This time around from this the newspaper, Wadi, presidency intervenes in controversy over police recruitment. So that controversy has been going on between the Police Service Commission and the police itself, especially accusing the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Mohammed Adamu, of sidelining it. The PSC, that's Police Service Commission, also described the list of candidates released by the Inspector General of Police as lopsided and against federal character principle. Uh, the presidency stepping into this controversy now. How do you see this being resolved?
We've spoken about this severally, and one of the things we've continually said is, what does the act say? If both parties do not understand what the act says, go to court. And from this report, it is stated that the PSC chairman had reportedly written to the chief of staff in terms of the fact that they had gone to court, that's the PSC, to get a proper interpretation of what the law says, and the IG has refused to obey the court order. Why do we in Nigeria always want the presidency to step into everything when there are due processes that we can follow to interpret what the law says? This has been going back and forth from the very first day that they released the fact that people were going to be recruited into the police. Who is in charge? Is it the PSC? Is it the police itself? Is it the IG that has the final say, or is it a combination of a committee of both the PSC and the what's it called? In Nigeria, we always run back and say, "Oh, the presidency." Last week we were talking about labor. Oh, if the president doesn't intervene, the president is only one person. That's why you have a process that you must go and abide by. So for me, when you look at this, a lot of issues have come up in terms of what they say, in terms of the breakdown. Um, First, they said, "Oh, the list release is being cancelled," and then they go back and say, "No, there's a committee. Once the IG who is out of town reads the report of the committee, they would finalize on that." It's just going back and forth. Since the
But
case is in court,
mm,
or the PSC has gone to court, let's wait for the court to interpret what the law says.
all right, so I went through the website of the Police Service Commission, and its mission statement reads thus: to improve service delivery in the Nigerian police force by promoting transparency and accountability in the police, and by extension, providing oversight functions over the police. Are they going away? Are they straying away from their responsibilities by checking the police whenever they are?
No, they are not.
Mm.
They're not. If they are supposed to provide oversight, it means that they're supposed to ensure that the police itself is transparent in its dealings. And have they been transparent in this case? It calls to question whether there's transparency with regards to this recruitment. And it's been on. It's been on for the last couple of months now.
All right, thank you, Wadi. I would like you to share your thoughts on WhatsApp 0809 444 Our next story is from this day newspaper. Cheta, Sean Telcos imposing charges on USSD transactions. The CBN governor, MFLA, tells banks. In this story, the governor of the central bank, Mr. Godwin MFLA, yesterday directed commercial banks and other financial institutions under its regulation to shun the move by telecommunication companies to impose charges on unstructured supplementary service data as services. Please take us through the story. We see that a lot of Nigerians are crying already for the trumped up charges that are being handed down to them as the
Yeah,
customer.
MTN sent a text message to customers. I think it was between Saturday night and yesterday morning, saying that effective today, USSD charges will go up for transfers and all of that. And because of the outcry, the Minister of Communication. It went through the NCC, Minister of Communication, effectively shut it down. Now, the statement from the CBN governor, I would say, is he's being clever by half. Yesterday, I spoke with quite a number of bankers, and the Guardian actually did a stronger story than this day. It was their lead story today, and they were also very clear in it that multiple industry sources told them that the decision to increase USSD charges was actually made by the bankers committee, which is the chief executive officers of the various banks sitting together. They were not ready because of the new CBN charges and all of that. They were not ready to bear that burden. So naturally, they did what big businesses do. In short, what any business does, they passed it on to the consumers. And then to sweeten it for the telcos, they added this the 4 naira charge. So they will take the on top of it, and then 4 naira for the telcos for infrastructure maintenance. Yes, so that was what's happened. And they couldn't have made that decision and then gotten up to implementation without the knowledge of the CBN. So when the CBN governor comes out and starts saying, "Oh, Sean he's being clever by half," a lot of the extra charges emanates from the CBN. The bankers are simply passing it on to the customers so that their bottom line is not affected. From my point of view, MTN is actually the only one who behaved properly in this thing by informing their customers that this is going to come, this is coming. Otherwise, they could have behaved like the rest of them, and then the charges would have started today, and we would not have known. We would have just started seeing extra charges. Unfortunately, because of our own native xenophobia, we don't realize that it was MTN that behaved properly. Yeah, the other telcos kept quiet. MTN to informed customers ahead of time. So we are falling for the narrative and essentially setting MTN up for another fine or another round of sanction by the government. When what we should be doing is asking, why are all of these charges coming? Since as a people we seem to be incapable of acting together, this is what will happen. People will naturally look to reduce the burden on themselves, which means that not, they will shun electronic transfers and all of that. Operation Cashless is dead. There are simply implications to that. Operation Cashless dies, more people start moving around with large volumes of cash,
Mhm.
which gives Philip to armed robbers and kidnappers. We are back to the old days.
All
Thank
right.
you, Cheta.
Vincent has something to say about this. He says on USSD charges, why is it that customers are the losing end in this country? All these taxes we are paying do not have any positive impact in the living conditions of the Nigerian masses. All right, thank you very much for your comments. Keep them coming through as we move on to our next headline here. I'll go to you, Wade. Stop creating impediments for federal projects, or Buhari warns. So, according to this report from the Daily Times, the president says henceforth the federal government may be forced to reallocate projects elsewhere if any state government or community creates unnecessary impediments in the allocation of land or access to such land for federal projects. If you recall, a few weeks back, the Minister for Works and Housing had come out to say that one of the reasons why the construction of the second Niger bridge was stalling was because community members were, again, they were stopping the work. What do you have to say about this?
I remember a few weeks back we said the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
What's the process for getting these things? Sometimes you find out that contractors just come into a place and they say, "Oh, we're doing federal project."
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knows how the land was allocated. Nobody knows what the project is all about. There is really no transparency in a lot of all these things. And I hear the president's words of saying that they would relocate them. But what's the how do the states, the local governments, the
Yeah.
communities all sit down together and partner in ensuring that these projects are done in line with what the expectations are? And this is what I see from here. Why? Because each time we threaten, like the minister of work said the last time, "Oh, you want to build a road, you've allocated you've given out the contracts, you've given out the what's it called, you've displaced people,
Mm-hmm.
the right compensations haven't been paid,
Yeah.
people are moved out by force, and then you're wondering, that you're asking why they're revolting." So it also goes back to show, or goes back to the people and say, well, if our economic value has been taken away from us, how do we get new economic value? And that for me is the major issue here. We continually say here that transparency of governance is key
Mm.
to a lot of all these projects, but we don't see a lot of transparency. And each
And then we
time,
wonder why there's no trust. We wonder why
exactly,
there's no
and we know
trust
why
built
they
around.
exactly. And then what happens is that once you move a contractor out of sight, to bring him back is additional money.
But yes. So it means that they're incurring more costs.
Yes.
Right, thank you very much. Very important, and also I think also this points to raising awareness. So community engagement. We have this in some organizations. All companies have people who are paid to engage with the community.
All these stories about second Niger bridge, because that's the cocoa in the one that concerns me. I come from that area.
Mm.
Just build the bridge and commission it, and that is it.
All right.
And all this one is a ta 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 ta.
Okay.
Build the bridge.
Let's talk about something else that affects you, Cheta. Federal government vows to review nation's broadcasting code.
Mhm.
So the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, has vowed that no amount of a tax would stop the implementation of the recommendations on reform of the nation's broadcasting code. Now, I know you're very vocal online and on air, so please tell us what you think about this statement.
What I think about it can't be said on breakfast radio
Okay,
social
please
media.
tell us what as an analyst, what you have to say about this.
I think it's a bit rich coming from Lai Mohammed. Is it not the same NBC that shut me down when I was talking about a historical fact in your former place of work? So it it's see, all of this is in reality an effort to stifle free speech. There are already existing laws. So if somebody comes on the air and says an obvious lie, there are laws about there for that. There are laws for slander, there are laws for libel, there are laws for falsehood. Explore that instead of creating. There's something that somebody said, I forget who now. The more regulation, the more laws a country has, the more corrupt it's likely to be.
Yes.
It's That's what we're seeing here. You want to really do this, do the hard work, process. If Chata comes on air and blows a lie, says that there was a massacre in Asaba on 7th of October 1967 and it never happened, then take Cheta to court. And there is a law for that.
All right.
It's like creating more laws essentially is to gag Cheta. That's what this is all about.
Right. Okay, thank you very much for that. We have comments and then we move on to our next story.
Muiwa Omokpa Ariola on Twitter sent this message. Says all these charges and taxes on consumers only point to one fact:
Money no dey.
Nigeria needs money.
Nigeria is broke.
However, government needs to cut costs on governance too. You can't expect us to sacrifice while you live large.
True.
Well,
And,
they've started though.
Olaoluwa here says
Started what?
border closure. 1 second, please. Border closure may be painful in the short term, but will develop our economy in the long run. Things like this, if well implemented, will reduce unemployment and dumping, etc. China has done it or has to do it to get. Had to do it.
Stop using China as example.
Please calm
Cheta,
down.
he has a right to
I
express.
said China had to do it to get to where they are today. Just an insight. Ayodeji here from Lekki says, "Good morning, guys. On flooding, the government is part of the problem. They seem to have abdicated their responsibilities. LASG constructed a short road on the Lekki axis 2.5 years ago. In doing so, they ended up blocking our drainage. We reported to the Ministry of Environment and Ministry of Works over the period of 1.5 years, and eventually each resident had to contribute 850,000 naira to solve the problem. It was quite painful because we pay tax." Thank you,
All right,
Adeji, for your
thank
message.
you very much. Cheta, you're going to say something.
This China thing that we keep talking about, it's called autarky. China did it in 1953. They called it the Great Leap Forward. Do you know what it led to? It led to the Great Famine. 18 million people dead. China's economy, and the graphs are there. China's economy only started growing when they opened their borders after the Yangtze Port Conference in 1983. So all of this, China did, it is false.
All right, thank you very much for clarifying that. Let's move on to our next story. Wadi, I'll come to you. Kaduna Torture Center inmates chained for 8 years, says the commissioner. The Commissioner for Human Services and Social Development, Hajia Hafsat Baba. A number of us saw the story, saw pictures, and it was horrifying. And we're thinking, oh, what's going on here? But please take us through this story. It's very short, but please.
This is sad. I think this is the second one in the last couple of weeks. There was one about the kids. I really don't know where to start. There were about 125 male inmates and 22 female. Amongst them were 4 foreigners from Cameroon and Niger. Some of them had been chained for 8 years, and it's amazing. What exactly does the center do? Why are those people there? Are they to learn a trade? Are they to learn something? We set up 1,001 centers in the name of what's it called, of correctional facilities, and nobody checks them. So it's really, really sad.
Well, they
Really
say
sad.
they're going to be investigating and exposing these centers in the coming days.
But
We'll keep an eye on that.
just one last thing. we're going to be investigating after these crimes have been committed. The process of even registering these centers and checking them and monitoring them, who does that?
Good question there. Thank you very much, Wade. Final story for today, Cheta. Battle for implementation of minimum wage moves to states. So last week we were congratulating ourselves that
Were
finally
we?
the Minister of Labour, Dr. Chris Ngege, and the Labour Union had come to an agreement with regards to a deal for the minimum wage. However, we see that that's not actually the end.
We were not congratulating ourselves. We were looking at the greasy that we're going to put ourselves inside. So let's be very clear about it. Again, I'll repeat what I said on Friday. The specifics of the numbers are not really important. The real issue is that the government, even at the federal level, cannot meet salary commitments without borrowing. And this situation, remember, numbers officially our debt service to revenue ratio is unsustainable at about 67% officially. Unofficial sources say it's even more. Now, again, context. The inflationary trends of the last 3 years have been inflation has been in double digit all through. So yes, there needs to be some form of palliative. I completely agree. All of these things that the banks and the CBN and all of them are throwing at us, there needs to be some sort of palliative. I agree. However, the biggest thing that the government needs to do, let go of subsidies, rationalize the civil service. Some civil servants have to go, whether they like it or not. They are not willing to do them because they are politically explosive. And it's cowardice on the part of the government because you are a second term government. So these are hard things that you can actually push through because you don't need another election, at least on paper. Now, about the states, a good 19 of our states are completely skint. 19 of them. So these guys will not, they will simply default to what they have always been doing. They go, oh, not as in, it's not even hard for them because they know that Nigerians tend to look more towards Abuja for everything than for, again, that's natural because all the revenue is routed through Abuja. So until we address these fundamental issues, we will keep having these discussions over and over and over again. The thing has become a scratch city, but we will keep doing it.
All right, I think it's worthy of note that Kaduna State is the only state that has started to pay the new minimum wage, started in September.
All right, we'll take a few messages before we wrap it up. Kunle from Aja says, Ogachata is not only second Niger bridge. Have you thought of Ruga? The statement is just not ordinary, he said. We have more messages. Bosun says, what exactly is the KPI of customs? Why can't government parastatals be appraised based on their KPI, that's key performance indices? We won't be in this problem if they did their job, is what he said. David here says,
one of the few times I do not agree with Cheta, the goods should be imported through the right channels, pay the necessary duties and levies to government, say no to smuggling.
And then Obi10 Kenobi says, Bros Cheta, please calm down or no, don't catch high BP over the ignorance of the average Nigerian. China's current boom is squarely based on opening up of their formerly closed economy.
Yeah.
Folks need to read, is what he says. And special thanks to every one of you who sent in messages through Twitter, YouTube, and WhatsApp. And thanks to Cheta at Checkstar on Twitter and Wade at Ring, Nigeria.
Thank you.
Thank you. Join us next as we talk sports. Liverpool and Manchester United match is one of the highlights here in the Locker Room 981.
The headlines, the stories.
Better calm down. No.
No, I'm very calm.
No, when I say calm down, leave this.
No, it needs, see, one
No,
of
it was good. It was good that you